Wait.
Oh, we're on, baby. We're live.
We're on? Welcome to the Mayhem Athlete Podcast, the most controversial podcast in all of programming history.
That was a great kickoff. Sponsored by who?
Sponsored by California Hormones. No, I was doing that for Civil. No, but we are going to review some cycle stuff for the off season. Just kind of talk about programming, what it looks like moving on from quarterfinals in the Open. Majority of athletes in CrossFit don't really get to semifinals. We're talking about like the 0.001%, especially since they took 20 spots away from North America.
Shots fired.
It gets even
big shots fired.
Gets even shorter. So most people are heading into an off season. We have to look at priorities and kind of talk about like what that looks like for a CrossFit athlete in general. And I know the guys here with me, and something I've been thinking about for a while. It's just like, what does it look like in general for a CrossFit athlete's season, and to prioritize that based on like when CrossFit starts, when the season starts, whether that's the Open or quarterfinals, depending on athlete, or if CrossFit makes changes to the season. And so we're kind of just swinging ourselves into an off season because that's the majority of where our people are landing right now, and how do we start to prep for next season. And the best way to do that is to actually have a plan for the next few months before we get into the winter, which I would call like probably preseason. So I'm going to kick it over to Jake and let him open up a little bit about what's going to be coming on Compete here for you guys.
Absolutely. So what we'll do, like Dom said, we're going to try this out today. Cycle overview podcast for upcoming cycle for Compete. And it's going to be off season like that. And anyone that's not the 0.1% of the sport should be moving into off season phase with their programming, whether they're on Compete or Mayhem 60, or they're individualized in their Mayhem Performance. And we even look at our affiliate programming this way some too, to build it off of it, to change it the style, even if you're a GPP, you want to stay ready all the time, but you still want to periodize it so you're not doing the same thing all the time, because one, you'll end up making more fitness gains, and two, it's just a lot more fun that way. So we'll talk about some like high level stuff. Some Dom mentioned of like, what do you focus on in the off season? What's the first thing to get into if your competition phase is done? We'll kind of look at the calendar of like, what does this next year look like? Will the cycles break up into quickly? And then we'll dive into the specific Hulk out cycle, which is going to be 15 weeks. I'll touch on some days, what it'll look like. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we got something Friday, Saturday, from strength to the conditioning to the gymnastic focus. And also we're going to talk about how we order and structure our Metcons with that as well. So we'll get into the weeds with that so you know what's upcoming there. And then we'll finish off. These guys will help out for sure. They'll talk about like if they had a client, how do you individualize those principles for that client? We may talk about a couple examples, like what if you struggle with strength specifically, or conditioning, or gymnastics, how would it look different between those two, even though there's going to be some principles that apply, and some of the structuring of this training would look the same for that. So that makes sense?
Let's roll.
So high level, you guys can help chime into before we dive into this cycle specific. Begin with the end in mind is a good way to say that, to think about it. I think you said this too before. And then forward thinking, backwards planning. So we're looking at CrossFit calendar season. If the Open is the beginning of your competitive season, we're going February 2025. So you got a lot of time to build from there based on you as a client or athlete, what you want to do. So that's a big off season. So with this, we broke it up. It's going to be about a 3-month cycle. But when you guys think about clients coming in, or he's programming for someone, we won't give them a huge hole, like a general athlete that needs to work on all their fitness. How do you think about the off-season and way to structure it to peak in that February, March area in the next year?
Ooh, loaded question. You just nodded to me like I gotta kick it off. Man, how do I think about it? I mean, if it's just like, I guess, general client, if I'm thinking of like a template and they don't have any major holes, like you said, let's just call them well-rounded. Obviously, I know the first thing we're going to do is have a period of deload, right? Like after competition, there's going to be a rest period. The length of the rest period obviously depends on the level of the athlete and the level of intensity that they've had in their training. I think one of the biggest mistakes that we see people make is like even people who participate in the Open not deloading, like not having a period of rest. Now that rest, it can be different for people too, right? Like it doesn't have to be an entire week off where you're sitting on the couch, right? It could be just active recovery, getting out of the gym, or even coming into the gym still, but just not going as intense. So after a period of deload, then I would always have a period of, there's so many different languages to use here, but like base building, which is what we did, right? With the Open level athletes post-Open, where the major focus for me would be skill development, number one, working on like holes, whether it's gymnastics, Olympic lifting, doing it without like any fatigue in a non-fatigue setting while they're fresh. And then hypertrophy, which is what Dom can chime in on a little bit. Like hypertrophy meaning muscle building, more for the sake of prepping joints and tendons for the heavy lifting and load that's to come. And then I would have a period like we're going to talk about with Hulk out where it's time to get strong, right? And getting strong is where it could be individualized, but building overall absolute strength, like in the power lifts, and then eventually translating that, running like the strength continuum, it's called, into strength speed where we're doing a little bit more Olympic lifting, and then taking that base of strength and then making it more sport specific. So getting really good at doing strength under fatigue with more conditioning. And then that's what you that's like the last phase leading into the open. That'd be like the biggest general overview that I could give. So we're kind of almost now going into, for some people in the open, like this would be essentially like phase 2, right? Ish.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Phase 1.5, phase 2.
1.5. Yeah.
That's what we kind of did. Dom, you can hop in next. So we'll have, we actually structured it back in this year because the season calendar was different. Last year was open, then 2 weeks in quarterfinals. This year was like a 4 or 5 week break. I'm trying to do math in my head. It was a little bit longer break. So we did was open athletes that finished. We had the quote unquote regain cycle where we had some hypertrophic specific focus. So we're doing some hypertrophy more in there for these 6 weeks that we've been going through. Have more joint and tendon health and a lot of just pure tech Oli work that he was mentioning with the deload week after the open. And so we're transitioning into this new Hulk out cycle with a deload week. So if you've done quarterfinals, you're taking a week or 2 off, you may have hit something in the gym, you're going to transition back nice and easy. Thing I'll harp on biggest thing that I never did when we were like, we'd have a ton of direction back in the day, like 2013, but I do the open like next week. I was like, let's run that back. Let's like do some more open style intervals. Yeah. I didn't know at the time, but like make a true week out of the gym, not doing like CrossFit is a big deal.
Yeah. And I think like that's something like, I don't know if this is a general question people would ask, but coming off like the open, if you made quarterfinals for the first time, would it be wise for that person to start following the quarterfinal track for the next year instead of following the open track, right?
Yeah, good question. Our quarterfinals track and open track will basically combine again. So open track was different leading into quarterfinals because obviously if you just didn't make quarterfinals, you just need to do the open work. And now that both their seasons are done, they'll converge again. Quarterfinals athletes will have a little bit more extra work from time to time if they have more time and volume, which open athletes could hit as well. But now they're all going to converge together. Next week for us right now will be May 6th, which will be that deload week. And May 13th will all kick off on Hulk out cycle. Everyone in their off season doing that together. So good question.
And I think that's important for everybody to know is like when your season ends, you do have to take a time of deload, and not just for physical reasons, like in resetting your central nervous system, resetting your life, but mentally like taking a break from being in the gym and realizing that like there's things outside of CrossFit as well that are important, and it doesn't matter what level of competitor you are. Like
even games athletes, I tell them literally take all of the next month off, basically.
Yeah, when the games finishes, most games athletes pretty much take a true month off. They'll probably do some fitness or something outside or things they enjoy, but nothing training-wise that's getting them better. And I think that's a really important thing to do that not enough people in the lower levels actually take advantage of. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of us think like, oh, if we didn't qualify to this stage, it's just like daily fitness. So I don't really need time off. I'll just get back to it in 2 days. So when really we should be taking a week off. So I think A, maximize that, and then B, even utilize that time to be like, what do I really want to get better at this season, and use that to focus in on your training and like think about what your needs are. So even when you're following the programming and everything in there, you can, assess what you need to prioritize, especially if you're someone like Jake is saying that might not have time to hit every single thing on the compete track. Like, are you prioritizing your weaknesses and assessing like what your needs are going to be over the base of the season? That will help you also, like, based on what we're going to do here, help you determine what is the most important things for you to be hitting in the off season.
What would you say to the recreational CrossFitter who's like, this is just a hobby for me, I don't really care that much about my finishing the opener and quarterfinals, why do I need to take a week off? Yeah. Like, what do I really care? I'm not mentally or emotionally drained. I didn't really care that much. It wasn't that big of a deal for me.
Sure. I think, again, if you're just like an affiliate goer and you're participating in the open, I don't know if you need a week off. You could probably still keep working out normally if it's just like another day. Yeah. Like if your Friday was just the open workout, you can probably do that. But if you're someone in CrossFit who's like setting out and you're actually like taking the open seriously, you're repeating workouts and doing things like that, that time off is just a good mental reset. And just something like we all need intensity wise. I mean, you could probably chime in on that. Like, you know what it's like to kind of hammer intensity for years, kind of see the repercussions of not like ever taking time off or like paying attention to what's going on in your diet and your sleep and your habits, and
like autoimmune disease
kind of mess you up.
No, I mean, I mean, I would even say for those individuals who are even just like it's a hobby, that the hobbyist CrossFitter, which is what we are, right? Like just having fun with it, but you're still, it's still intensity, right? And this is what I love about like CrossFit originally. They were like, use your fitness. Like, I think that's a great time to literally go play. And I've heard a lot of CrossFitters be like, well, CrossFit is my play. And I'd be like, well, maybe that's another conversation, but that might be a little bit of a problem. Like if you go like regularly try and play new sports.
Learn and play new sports.
Learn and play new, like literally get out of the gym, go play some basketball, like go play some
hike.
Yeah, hike. Like
hike's the easiest.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard. I relate. In like 2012 to 18, I was like, forget that. The most fun thing I do is go intense workouts in the gym. So that was what it was. But it is just a big deal because you will eventually, like, it won't be as fun if you don't intentionally go do something else. Change. Like the biggest thing is change your environment. So probably don't go to the gym for just that 1 week, and then your intensity. If you do those two things, and the environment would help with intensity, but intensity is the biggest thing you got to pull back.
And an off-season cycle is a good way to like balance that ramp up. Like even your first month back to training, it doesn't need to be intensity every single day. You don't have to be slamming open workouts every single day to get better at the open. Most athletes that I coach on an individual level, like we back a lot of athletes that I have do 2 sessions a day, back off to 1 session a day for at least 2 months. Right. And then on top of that, like their conditioning varies each day from just a monostructural piece to potentially just like something outdoors like that to an interval to an open workout. And there's like variance throughout that in the off season. But we definitely have days where like I pull them back and I'll be like, hey, let's just lift today. Or let's just work on gymnastic skills, or a little bit of both, without needing that intensity. And the off season is a great time to do that, especially if you're someone who's feeling worn down from the open or quarterfinals, no matter how fired up you are mentally, to like get back to training and to like meet goals for the next season, like actually pay attention to how your body's feeling.
For sure. That's good. Anything else to add?
Not unless we went into a wormhole.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll hold off. Yeah.
We'll transition.
Yeah.
So this next year I've looked at and these guys help me a lot, especially with specific areas of it, but looking at the cycles next year, we'll dive in Hulk out. It's going to be 15 weeks on May 13th. There's going to be a deload week, most likely the first week of July. After that, just so you all know, we'll deload at the end of August, right after we finish the cycle. Then in September, the Into the Storm cycle will be 8 weeks. So that's a couple months. And all these cycles, there's a deload week late in the middle and sometimes the end. We'll then go to Nerves of Steel. That's just the name of it. For 8 more weeks. It'll get us in the end of the year through Christmas, which will deload and transition. Beginning of the year, we always kick off with Nimble and Quick, getting ready for the open and the competition season. And then predicting where the open likely is going to be at middle into February. You've got compete cycles starting again. And they mentioned the technical terms a lot of these, what these cycles will do. Just know these cycles are going to carry you into the competitive season. It'll ramp up intensity as needed, focus on specific things with strength, aerobic conditioning, and just competing that will naturally lean in towards too as we get later and later in the year. But like we've said, Hulk Out is really not intending to do that. We're just coming off, like I said, a 6-week regain cycle is what we turned this new one, just transitioning in off season. There was some more powerlifting and bodybuilding in that one truly with very little Olympic lifting. This one's still going to see some of that with some more Olympic lifting technique dabbled in there. So I want to run through kind of the big things on this cycle that you might want to look out for. Our biggest focus is 1, is going to be building strength. 2nd, as we're working on our aerobic base, the Metcons will naturally feed into this, and our program-specific portion of this will be a 5-mile program Henshaw's rooting for us that we'll hit on Thursdays. If you don't want to run or you're like, I got to work on a machine, there's also a 50-minute machine option in there as well. Same stimulus, just designed for any machine, whether it's rowing, biking. You could technically ski. I wouldn't recommend that. So mainly rowing or biking. You could use the air runner as well, but you'd probably choose the 5-mile run program for that. So you got building strength, aerobic base, gymnastics skill. Pamela with Mayhem Gymnastics helping us out there with handstand hold. Focus on that for some skill, and then core strengthening with some various skills under that. Then we'll talk about the rotation of our Metcons. So we got strength, We got aerobic conditioning, we got gymnastics, and then metabolic conditioning there with that. What a week's going to look like, May 13th. So we'll start with strength. There's going to be successory work, as Sage terms it a lot. She's written this cycle for us. We've pulled from Ann Bergener Strength for a lot of it. And then we've written some specific stuff in there for some extra bodybuilding accessory work as well, to include in the week that might not be under that Ann Bergener Strength cycle. But Mondays and Tuesdays are either going to be snatch focused and front squat. So Monday will typically be that, and Tuesday will be clean focused with some dumbbell bench and like bent over row or single arm row. At the second week, it'll flip. So sometimes Monday will be clean work into that front squat or lunging work, so that single leg flexion. And then Tuesday sometimes will be that same idea on snatching into that front squat or bench press work. It just may flip the days. So Monday, Tuesday are always snatching or cleaning. This clean work and snatch work, the style is going to be the same. It's going to be tech work into on-the-minute work. So mostly percentages, 1s and 2s, sometimes 3s, but it's a weight you're always going to be comfortable hitting, building from like 60 to 65%. You might get into 70, 75% from whether it's moving from the high hang to the hang and power snatch, so all the way to the squat snatch. We're building throughout in load as we move in the positions that we can hit more load in. And it's going to be quick. Should keep it fun and varied. That way you're not getting bored resting too much. We'll keep a lot on the minute work. Sage really likes that, and it helps with that as well. The front squat's going to be more volume accumulation, as we say, so hitting more reps there, not as super high percentage, but actually stay on the minute as well. So that's what a lot of Mondays will look like. Tuesdays with the clean work is the same idea. We'll go positional work. It's more on the minute work. And then we'll actually finish those days with more deadlifting or sumo deadlift, depending on the week, and then bench press work. You will see a fair amount of bench pressing this cycle, because really we just love bench pressing. It's a great time to work on it, horizontal pressing, and it transfers to a lot of other things. Wednesdays, we'll flip-flop weeks. So once you're in programming, it looks really clean and it's easy to follow. We flip-flop these weeks to keep it varied. We can kind of work on the same thing, but progress that throughout, ping-pong between week A and B, essentially. It'll be successory work into either overhead snatch positioning, overhead squat. We'll do some on-the-minute and tech work. And then the next week, you'll see more pressing work, so like strict press, push press on that. And then the next week, we'll go back to that snatch balance style work and ping-pong back and forth. Friday, Saturday, you're going to see some pure back squat strength, so we'll work on the minute to higher loads on that. It'll be RPE based, and they'll also work on some higher reps at the lower RP on that. It'll either be back squat or box squat, depending on what the Metcon has for that day, or just what week it is, going back and forth. And then a lot of Fridays that we're going to call functional pump Fridays, so we'll naturally include that bench press with that. Then we're also going to hit, should be fun, Friday finishers, just pure arms, curls, bis and tris with that. Anything you think I didn't touch on?
Those 2 days sound amazing.
Pipe building.
Pipe building.
That's all I need.
To the max. Your upper body on Friday is going to get plenty of work, I promise. One quick, we'll hit on Metcon. Actually, 2. Here's one. I think you threw it in to compete, Foster. Rich hit this. His was a little tougher. This was his version. It may be scaled back a touch, but it was 4-time 1,000-meter row, rest 1 minute. You go max body weight bench press, rest 1 minute. You'll run through that until you accumulate 50 bench press. So getting a lot of rowing work, a ton of bench press.
Which is 75, I think, right?
He did 75. That's right. We pulled it back to 50. Yeah. That's what we changed.
15.
Give the people what they want. Keep it at
round,
75. Yeah.
A 5K. So easy.
Yeah.
RX Plus. Yeah. Look on what Rich doing track for that one. Yeah. If you're not hitting 15s, then you're going to want to
get real swole, go 75. Yeah.
You want to row a lot, do 75.
Yeah, touche.
Yeah.
Scale the row back to 5. Well, let's just reprogram it all right now.
Yeah,
500-meter row.
No row.
Bench press. Yeah, forget the row.
75
just
bench
do,
for time.
Yes, yeah. Just 10-minute AMRAP of bench press at body weight.
Another good example, we kept Fridays, like we call them functional pumps. So you're going to get out of breath some. You're going to push, pull. It might be a machine, probably a bench press, maybe overhead. Another one, Foster, you wrote this, the 18-minute AMRAP. Remember it? I think you did.
It may have been like, I wrote it maybe like a month ago.
6-4-2 bench press. Weight's probably going to be 225, 145 with 3-2-1 rope climb.
Oh, yeah.
So 6-3, 4-2, 2-1. And then once you do that, you'll repeat that for 18 minutes. You go back to 6-3, 4-2, 2-1. So classic push-pull, but it's still a CrossFit because you're doing rope climbs. It's just.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the quarterfinals workout, handstand push-up, rope climb, wall-facing handstand push-up, ring muscle-up. If you want to get really good at wall-facing handstand push-ups, and ring muscle-ups, bench in the off-season in a bunch of different planes. Easy.
Absolutely. So even though it is bench press, you're like, well, it didn't show up in quarterfinals or open, like it's still going to benefit you in other ways, and you can't always just do handstand push-ups.
I think I had a client the other day ask me, like, why are we benching so much in the off season? And I think the simplest explanation is benching is close grip in particular, which I think is has the biggest carryover. It is the best way to overload your triceps without getting your hips involved. Like, I think that's the best way of thinking about it.
Yep.
You know, think about a push press, hips are involved. Even a strict press, you get a little bit of leg drive in there. Like, we're overloading the tricep without the hips involved. Dip would work too, right? But
did you say your golden 3 incline bench?
Yeah, Louis Simmons. I was not at this seminar, but one of my mentors told me, like, at Louis Simmons, the GOAT, right, of powerlifting internationally, but in particular in the States, coached the America's Strongest Men, founder of Westside Barbell. He always said, like, his top 3 accessory movements that he doesn't understand why all CrossFitters are not doing on a regular basis was like dip, incline bench, and close grip incline bench, dip, and I think push press was like the third one.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
Okay. I love it.
So
well, we just finished a strict dip cycle.
I'm quoting Louis Simmons. You would know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that what he
That
said?
sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. Louis the man. Yeah, I love that too. You've helped me learn that or incorporate that more in the last year. We just finished a strict dip weighted cycle with Mayhem Gymnastics. This one has a lot of bench pressing. It has single arm dumbbell bench press at tempo on an incline on days we don't have like smashing with the functional
Just
pump.
to defend the bench, why not? I'm going to go one more point. I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't want to
Keep it
digress
coming.
too much. Yeah, one more thing on the bench would be, like Dom just mentioned it, is like also in the off season training in a different plane, right? Like if you hit the same range of motion, the same pattern repeatedly over and over and over, you're asking for overuse injuries. So the off season is a great time for example, another example would be, man, all we do in CrossFit is vertical pulling, right? Great time to do some horizontal pulling. And as a former PT, you would know like the benefits of shoulder health, right? And longevity with that. All we do in CrossFit typically is a lot of vertical pressing. So it's just good to change the plane that you're moving in, really just for health, like, you know, joint and tendon health.
Yeah, and even like rotational and lateral movement.
Touche.
In other areas, because everything is just all frontal.
So much for constantly varied. We never do rotational work ever, you know? Yeah. Or lateral, you know.
And I just don't think people even think about how much that can have transfer, because it's not something that's
it'll help your golf game.
right.
Yeah.
Hit that ball.
But like I actually used to program for a golfer for a while. It's funny you said that. But he wanted to come in and just do pure CrossFit because all he does outside of that is rotational.
Mm-hmm.
So he was like, this will actually benefit me to not do that because of overuse stuff. And he's like, all I'm doing is swinging a golf club a million times a day. He's like, I don't need to do rotational strength work. I need to do basic strength in a frontal plane. And it actually like added so much yards for him off the tee just by doing like simple basic hour a day CrossFit.
And that's how our mind think. Like in the off season, you're thinking, what are the demands of the sport? And when we're doing sport specific training, like what are the patterns and the planes that we're moving in on a regular basis? How can we use off season to basically do the antithesis of that to support those patterns?
Yes.
So I coached a baseball team like in the off season and basketball as well. So like off season, we did a lot of anti-rotational work, right? To support all the rotational work that they would be doing in season. So it's kind of the same thought process for CrossFit.
Yep. For sure. Hit the planes you're not going to hit. And that's why the same thing aerobically, we're going to hit the time domains a ton off season. We don't hit in season because building a bigger aerobic base has let you go faster and harder in season with lactate threshold intensity once you get there. So
Which may be the most important thing in CrossFit, hands down. Probably at the end of the day, it's like the better aerobic base, the better CrossFitter you're going to be.
Engines win championships.
They do. They do. Man, that hits mostly everything on the strength, and it transitions straight into this one's simple. Aerobically, what we're working on is the Metcons we'll touch on at the end. Like by the time domain's there, build your aerobic base naturally through the CrossFit style we're doing on them. The biggest true aerobic focus we're going to do is every Thursday, Henshaw's written us a 5-mile program. So it's going to be PR your 5-mile run. If you've never ran that far, you're about to PR your 5-mile run, or maybe jog, walk. With that, like I said, we have a 15-minute machine option. It'll be the same time domain essentially. It's just you can hop on a bike or rower and do that there instead. To give you all an example, like week 1 is going to be 2 miles at RPE 2 to 3. It's like super low RPE. We'll have RPE guide up there for you all to know like what's RPE 2 or 3 mean, exactly how tough is that. But a good bit of zone 2 work. You'll rest 2 minutes. We'll go 5 sets of 800 meters RPE 3, and with 20-second surges thrown in there as well after each 800 meters. So we'll touch some higher intensity with the surges, but the vast majority of that entire thing is just time on your feet at a lower intensity. And the machine option is the exact same, actually. It's just time-based rather than distance-based.
Question for that, just to throw out to you guys, is you mentioned like we have a rowing option or biking. Who do you think, Dom, would be a good candidate for somebody who probably shouldn't be doing the running program and should opt for the bike outside of injury?
Sure. I mean, I think I always look at that for my athletes is like what point of the competition season is the most important for them and how much running does it include. And again, we can even talk about like what you might not see, do that earlier. So use some running for that. But like a lot of open athletes, if we're training for the open, chances are the most running you're going to see is a shuttle run, but you're going to see a ton of rowing. Like we saw tons of rowing in 2 stages of CrossFit this season. That matters. So I would probably choose the rowing based on the needs of the sport. And then I think like also general open and quarterfinals athletes can also just like see where they're at in their journey and how much wear and tear running might put on their body. I would probably choose the rowing cycle at this portion and phase of my life.
You know what Lockhart and I are doing.
We running, baby. I texted Hinch all day. Literally said, "Hey, I'm doing a marathon in October. I'm using this program to get it kicked off. Let's run." I totally agree. Yeah, Dom's spot on. The only thing is, well, one for variety, like we never really run, so it's summer. It's like a good time to go outside and get a run. Great. So if you need to, like, I'm sick of being on the rower. We've been training the rower for 6 months, and we did an open and quarterfinals. It's not going to be as much transfer, but it's okay. You can go run. We can still row a ton in this fall, winter. But if you were that athlete that, like, maybe just missed semis or you're, like, locked in, this is next year, your year, and you really struggle in the rower and the quarterfinals workout in the open, then, like, you probably should row in this. So
I would also say, too, is, like, just understanding intensities appropriately during that run, like, especially if you're doing it Thursday for active recovery, like, you know, and if you haven't spent a lot of time on your feet, you're going to probably PR. Like, you know, you're kind of kidding, but, like, just, like, the one thing that you and I have learned from running a lot more lately is, like, what's the most important thing in running? It's just, like, you said, time on your feet and just easy running, like building a base. So just as you're reading those RPEs and as Hinshaw writes those, just make sure that you're paying close attention to them. Like, you're not running harder than you should be on that day, or again, it's not recovery anymore, right? Or it's just more intensity. It's going to take away from Friday, right? And now if you're one of those athletes who really does need to get stronger in the off season, you're robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Right. The exception I would put, if you're just you are the aerobic engine, like you're a freak on that, which there is those out there for sure, but like you can't, as a guy, snatch over 225, then you would be someone like, it's okay if you don't do this. Yeah. You can do it for fun if you want, but like if you truly have to get stronger and that's your limiter, then the answer might be, hey, you don't have to hit this program, it's okay, or you only hit it some weeks.
I think too, just aerobically speaking and thinking about it, like volume accumulation for strength in the off season, there's no difference for that really in aerobic training. Like when I think about that, like that's the same idea. It's like you're accumulating time on your feet, you're accumulating volume on the feet. The better you get at that, the better runner you're going to become. So when it does get more sport specific as we increase through the season, you're prepared to do harder running because you've gotten time on your feet, or you're prepared to do harder rowing intervals because you can take time to establish mechanics. And I think that's one thing that we like a lot of CrossFitters take for granted in off season is when we do longer, easier intensity running, rowing, biking, whatever. When's the last time you actually really paid attention to what your rowing stroke looked like, or your stride,
so many,
or even like how efficiently you're biking, even like on an echo bike? Are you thinking about everything? I was just randomly doing like an EMOM with Emma the other day on the C2 bike, and my quads were dying, and I was like, what if I pulled the pedal with my foot towards my hamstring and stopped using my quads, and my quads stopped burning and my hamstring started burning? I was like, this is sick. So like you can figure out things mechanically that can give you an advantage in different areas if you're moving at an easier intensity, because then you actually have a time to think. Yeah. Because you're not trying to just like push a certain pace or hit a certain pace. And that goes so far efficiency-wise when you do start doing the harder intervals or you do sport-specific training, because then you don't have a time to think, but now you have built-in muscle memory that literally can just like do the mechanics without thinking. Yeah, being your own coach, like especially when you're hitting these Olympic EMOMs, right? Like you said, like maybe sometimes it's appropriate to not hit it on the minute, right? Like if you're somebody who's really struggling with your lifting, go every 90 seconds, every 2 minutes, set up a camera, coach yourself, watch the video, get feedback, have somebody in the gym watch you doing it. Like now's the time to do it with no fatigue, right? Like, you know,
it's like it would be the equivalent of like telling somebody to go run 400 meters as fast as they can and then teach them how to throw a curveball, right? It's like now's the time in the off season to take a step back, slow things down, and focus on movement quality in your Olympic lifting, in your gymnastic skills, in your aerobic work, which is a good point. Something I don't think about often, like rowing and skiing and biking. Like, yeah, it's a good opportunity to perfect those
everywhere
movements, for sure.
Like a fish at the end of the day, like people used to say this all the time about Rich. Like, why is Rich beating everybody? Well, he moves way more efficiently than everybody else.
It costs less energy.
Yeah. If you need to build efficiency in a lot of these movement patterns, do them in the off season when you're moving slower, the intensity is lower and the loads are lower. Because if you can do that, and like I'm sure you can maybe jump in on this too, is like also building strength in your end range goes so far in the off season, like isometrics and positions, a lot of that, and especially in gymnastics, I like to program, but like even volume accumulation on your squats at lower percentages with higher reps. Like, how well are you squatting? Or are you just like busting through your squats to get through them because they feel light? Like, squat well, squat intentionally, like do all those things and build efficiency, and you'll have so much transfer when you get more into preseason and in season and your loads go way up, or even in your basic strength cycle, when your loads go way up, you'll be thanking yourself that you fixed movement patterns that might be giving you issues.
Yeah, and you have to do it now because it takes thousands, if not tens of thousands of reps to like rework literally the pathways in your brain that are telling you how to squat. So when you shut off and you just go fast, like that's who you're going to revert to. So if you don't use every rep in these every minute on the minute, every 9 seconds, or the 5 rep front squat or 10, whatever it is, like, and back off the load, that's okay. Like, get the RP intended more so with the perfected form rather than like forcing yourself to do percentage. I did that a ton early in my career. My squats sucked. Yeah. It took me years to even get it to like a decent place because of I always just wanted to do the load and lift heavy, and that definitely set me back and like held me back there. So be patient is a big theme with it.
I think too, that for those of you guys who are listening and thinking, well, again, I'm just a hobbyist, what's it really matter for me? I think the things that we're describing are going to keep you safe in the long run too.
Yeah, longevity huge.
Yeah, like this is, I mean, moving well, moving efficiently, training in full range of motion. Like, I don't care if you're a competitor or not, right? And you're following compete recreationally, right? This is going to help you live long and prosper. So, for sure.
So we got Star Trek week coming up soon. Actually,
I have no. I saw that from Star Trek, but I'm a Star Wars guy, so I have no idea.
Forget that.
Yeah,
may Force be with you. Touch on Mayhem Gymnastics. We'll have it usually on Monday, Tuesday for the handstand hold focus. It's just accumulating time upside down, getting more stable on a handstand hold, whether it's on the wall or outside with freestanding, and working on our balance with that. Just a lot of stuff in the sports that will translate to with handstand walking, the hold obviously, and then even handstand push-ups. And later in the week, Friday or Saturday, we'll touch on a lot of core flexion, hip flexion with might be weighted GHDs, Russian twists. We'll get some rotational stuff in there, Turkish get-ups, things like that to work on to improve how long we can hold ourselves upside down. And then the test will actually be 50 weighted GHD sit-ups with a med ball. So it's pretty tough actually. We'll build off those with the max freestanding handstand hold for 6 to 8 weeks and retest the end. That one's pretty basic, but Pamela's got it in there. We'll make sure we change it up each week so it's not you're not just doing GHD sit-ups every week and not just handstand hold. Outside of that, we'll move into how we've structured the Metcons. Shout out Foster. He's helped me a ton with this in the last year on still like keeping it Mayhem style for sure, but having a way we rotate in what we've termed these various styles of Metcons so that you're hitting everything you need to at the time of season, but we're making sure we hit it on a regular basis and nothing gets left off the table. Right now, you'll see Monday is going to be Murph prep. All the way through Murph, we'll hit Murph, and then after that, Mondays will turn into what we're deeming mixed aerobic work. So it'll be CrossFit style workout, but you can stay moving the whole time. So you're going to think like you're out of breath. You're not held up by like, oh, my shoulders are so tired from pressing that I can't press anymore. It's more like, oh, I'm just going to move the whole time at a consistent pace with the rest built in. It might be 1-to-1 or 2-to-1. That's Mondays. Fridays will always be bodybuilding. It's going to be that functional pump we're talking about. We mentioned some with like the push-pull, bench press. There will be some leg burners in there thrown in as well. The biggest theme will be the push-pull, some shoulder work, and then every now and then we'll get you just one where we'll blow up your legs. The ones we're rotating Tuesday, Wednesday, and Saturday, you don't really have to know these, but this is how we're looking at them, is like monostructural aerobic, so a big day of just like huge cardio workout. We call it bottleneck ladder, so you're naturally going to be limited by maybe it's the rep scheme or the way the workout crescendos, so you're just kind of having to work at one thing for a long time. We call it mixed energy system. So what's the classic example you gave?
Oh, I think we did it on Compete before. No, well, it was actually like, I think it was a 25-minute window. I think we did a partner version of it where we did Hollyman. So it was like 20 rounds of Hollyman with your partner, or 30 rounds. So it was like power clean, wall ball, handstand push up, and then immediately into establish. It was like max rep bench press at 225 for guys. So mixing energy systems, meaning just blending, like it's very similar to what you would see like in the open where you go from a conditioning piece into a strength piece, right? Or, not to get into like energy systems, but you have three predominant energy systems. So you start to blend them together, and it's really kind of true CrossFit. Like, how do we go from aerobic piece into a strength piece, or a strength piece into aerobic, or aerobic into a lactic piece, right? Where you've really got nothing left in the tank, or strength into that, and just kind of playing with different ideas around that. And if I add one more thing, the purpose behind that, and then, Jake will mention, we also have like a classic, like 8 to 12 minute CrossFit workout. So we have, I believe it's 7 different workouts that we're rotating through, or themed workouts. 2
stay fixed every week, and then another 5 rotate those 3-day window. So you'll never notice it. And we're kind of like giving a real peek behind the curtain. If you're following this, you're like, this seems random, but it's really not. So you guys know, and that's so like, hey, everything's on purpose every single week.
Yeah, basically it's like, we take the 5 workouts, and we're honestly thinking in the off season, like, how do we still do CrossFit movement patterns, but limit intensity as we're trying to, again, focus on skill development and Olympic lifting, building an aerobic base, and getting strong, right? Hence Hulk out cycle. How do we limit intensity, but then every once in a while still remind people, hey, we're doing CrossFit. And so that's hence like the idea behind rotations. If we have 5 workouts, 2 of them are going to be a little more classic CrossFit, like the mixed energy system piece, and then like your 8 to 12 minute classic workout. And then the other 3 are going to be a little bit more self-limiting. And then as we get closer to competition and in season, eventually that becomes maybe 3 and 2 the other way, and then 4 and 1, and then maybe 5, just, more sport specific training. So
for sure. Yep. As we get closer and closer, it'll be more and more pure CrossFit, pure Mayhem athlete with intervals thrown in there as well. But now we're going to pull back on that just because of the time of year to limit intensity and work on all those things he's mentioning. The last 2 were strongman and then pure CrossFit. Here's a fun strongman workout. I think we did this. I did it like you gave it to Guy last year. Me and Ben Davison did it. It's a repeat. It's 200-meter sandbag carry with 150 for the men, 100 for the ladies. Straight into 400-meter dumbbell farmer's carry, 70s and 50s on the dumbbells. The trick is every time you break on the sandbag, if you break, you'll do 5 cleans. Every time you set the dumbbells down, you do 15 dumbbell push-ups. I just remember it because this day.
I remember you smoked everyone.
Well, I teed up. This is like my perfect combination. I think I bet Ben Davison. He owes me something for this day. He was like, no chance you'll beat me. And I'm like, this is the one workout I can do.
I remember doing it in my driveway at home and suffering and being really upset. And and
every kid you have, your grip strength increases by 2%.
Yeah, it does.
That's scientific.
It didn't work for me.
Case study.
Yeah.
You have more kids.
Yeah. Our grip strength is trash.
Hold man strength. That's the only thing it does is grip strength. So the strong man will be stuff like that. Lots of carries, sled pushes, things you think of naturally, odd object cleans, and pulls from the ground like that. Those days will be fun.
The beauty of strongman training is that it's kind of self-limiting to begin with for the most part. And then 2 is that it's mostly concentric only movement, meaning there's not a lot of eccentrics or a lot of like lowering. So for example, think of like a sled push versus a front squat. The front squat's going to tear you up more, and it's going to be harder to recover from, versus a sled push. It's just like you're just pushing. There's no eccentric tension. There's no lowering of anything. So it's going to be quicker to recover from. So having that in the off season, and it's more isometric too, it's a little more conducive to absolute strength training.
And the eccentric, squat, you squat down, squat up. Squatting down would be eccentric, squatting up would be concentric. We get sore because the muscle fibers, I think the science behind it is, get damaged on the eccentric, which does produce like hypertrophy and potentially more gains, but we can still use some of the benefit of the concentric without taking all the soreness and some of the negative side effects of the eccentric with things like Foster's mentioning. So we can still get benefit from it, but we won't get the soreness induced as well.
I love strongman stuff too, especially in off season, just for getting extra external load on the body at really, really heavy loads without having to do like more knee flexion, more elbow flexion, more shoulder flexion. Like a lot of it in the carries like is an isometric position, even though we're walking or we're doing whatever, but we can get it like so heavy that it even has transfer to like the back squat because we're building central nervous stimulation the same way we're like loading the spine without having to do more knee flexion.
Yeah. And it's almost as pure CrossFit as you get some ways, carrying large loads, long distances quickly. Like
100%.
that's what that workout
I think
was.
strongman is probably actually the most functional style of training
100%.
for Gen Pop to begin with, but that's a different topic of conversation.
No.
Yeah. Odd objects, right? Like
Yeah,
carrying
sure.
odd objects. I mean, think about life in general, like being a parent, right? Like strongman training is the most functional style of training. CrossFit, sorry.
I would say in off season too, just based on what Jake has laid out here for you guys, is like when he's talking about the lower intensity, a little less time in the gym, a single session, things like that. We are at the end of the day in the sport of who recovers the fastest, and not just in between reps or in between workouts on a day-to-day basis, but like in between training sessions. And whoever recovers better literally gets better faster. And so in the off season, when you're spending less time in the gym, what are you doing outside of the gym? And honestly, the reason like elite athletes get really good is because they have a ton of time to spend recovering. It's people with like tons of external jobs, tons of external stress. Like there's reasons elite athletes or professional athletes are professional athletes so they can focus on their sport and spend the time outside of their training recovering. So the off season is a great time to really like dial in nutrition, dial in sleep, like really think about things that might limit you and find ways to like deload stress, go outside and do things. And utilize your off season to improve recovery outside of the gym, so you're getting more out of what you're doing in training. And I don't think enough people utilize that extra time outside of the gym. They just stress about how they're not in the gym as much as they were 2 months ago.
Recovery being literally gains. If you want the gains, you need to recover. And the fittest people often are the ones that recover the fastest because then they get more gains quicker, so it compounds. So then you're going to adapt more to the cycle. If you recover quicker, you get the gains and you get more within each cycle, and then next cycle the same thing happen over and over and over again. So more doesn't always necessarily mean better, because more would mean less recovery, less gains. I'll touch on one example for each of these styles, like Murph Prep. That's classic Murph broken up, so maybe strict Cindy into some run intervals. CrossFit, this classic examples could be interval partner style in this cycle, or just a straight 10-minute AMRAP. We'll make sure we keep it varied there, so it's not just pure open style workout, but it still be CrossFit when you say, oh, it's a couplet, it's a triplet.
I think your 7-minute AMRAP with a 7 total bar, 7 box jump. That's actually one of our workouts. We
saw that recently.
Yeah. We use that for performance coaching. That was like our group workout of the week.
Awesome.
It's a classic. That would be a great example.
For sure. We got one coming up. It's partner, double unders together, handstand walk together, and you're splitting up some heavy deadlifts, 2-minute AMRAPs, or rest 1 minute in between. So still CrossFit, at least you're partnered up on that one. Fun aerobic piece we've got. This is a repeat too. It's 7-minute AMRAP of 50-calorie bike and a max calorie row. At the 7-minute marker, rest 3 minutes. Do the 7-minute AMRAP again, but then you'll go 50-calorie row and a max calorie bike. So total calories. That one's not fun. That's going to hurt, but it is a way to throw it in there versus straight intervals, which you'll see some. Here's a bottleneck ladder one that I like a lot. 8, 16, 24, 32 of hang squat cleans, 95 for the men, 65 ladies. You do 8 burpee box jump overs at the 30 inches for men, 24 for ladies after each set. So bottleneck ladder being ladder, it literally goes up. So as the reps get higher, you're going to get slower in that workout. You're still doing CrossFit with that. Movement's a little different with hang squat clean, and then that burpee box jump being a little bit higher is going to slow you down as well on that. Versus if it's 24 inches, 8 and 8 the whole way, you're just burning that down. Talked on strongman, mixed energy system. We talked about some. Another simple example in that one, excuse me, would be, let me find one.
The Nate workout I could talk about. Yeah, I think we did like, was it 10 rounds of Nate, right?
Yep.
Mini Nate, 1 ring muscle up, 2 handstand push up. I think we did 4 kettlebell swings immediately into like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You changed it to front squat box jump at like a high box, and then right back into 10 rounds of mini Nate. So the mini Nate, again, like Jake was saying earlier, 1, 2, 4, like muscle up, handstand push up, kettlebell swing. The idea being that muscular endurance is not limiting you from moving. Like you can actually take, and this is debatable, but you know, just to say it, like take the contractions and make them more aerobic, more sustainable, where the limitation is not muscle endurance, into a more of a strength battery piece, right back into an aerobic piece. So again, just blending different.
Those are really fun workouts to do if you're like, you've got a training partner that's a super great gymnast and you're really strong. Well, this is going to be one that like, it's going to expose both those things. Not that workout. That workout actually does both ways a lot with Nate some. But it's just a good workout to do that way, because some places they're limited in the workout, you'll be limited elsewhere. So it's going to, as mixed energy systems, see where you're at with multiple of those, whether it's conditioning or lactic or strength.
I was actually thinking about that in the quarterfinal workout. How cool it would have been is if instead of dumbbell box step-ups, it was a gymnastics movement.
Oh, yeah. What?
Weightlifting, mono, and then gymnastic.
Well, that's what Ben was saying, burpee box jump over, but even like a muscle up or something.
Bar muscle up or something.
Would have been cool.
That would have been cool. I think that touched them all. The few other topics to touch on with this before we kind of talk about maybe a couple like client types, like specific where they might struggle. So masters, you guys will be doing essentially the same thing in teens. Mayhem Masters track, we'll have theirs different. Your strength cycle is going to be the same principles applied, but a little bit different. We're going to do a lot less squatting, still be single leg knee flexion. That might be more lunge style, step up. I know there's a lot of knees over toes work we've got in there for you all. We're really thinking longevity with the Masters this one, even if you're competitive, just because you can get into so many seasons with the Masters, and we know obviously like knees, hips, and shoulders, we need to do a lot more care with tendon and joint health. So it'll still be the same idea, but the strength will apply a little bit different with more higher rep work with that, and then we're not going to do as much pure Olympic lifting or squatting heavy with there, so it'll be very appropriate and get you guys teed up for your off season. Kind of talk about what if you're not competitive. Well, you probably just do this. You're going to have a blast anyways and getting fitter through it, but you're not going to stress about it. It'll take, open track usually takes about 90 minutes. If you do everything in there, some days might be 2 hours, but if you get there, get moving, you can knock out most days, a lot of it to all of it in 90 minutes. And you can do it all in one session. If you really wanted to break it out, I mean, you could lift in the morning and then do your Metcon in the afternoon. You could do some extra work in there as well. If you want more volume, you can pull from other tracks. We have 10 tracks with Mayhem athletes, so there's plenty extra to do. I know a lot of people do is they'll go look at semifinals games, just look for a fun workout. Like, don't hit the same movement on the same day or even the day before or after, but there's going to be so much extra conditioning there, skill pieces. What Rich doing is a blast to go to because you never know what he's going to be doing. He's always doing something that's people really enjoy. So if you really want to pull something extra, it could be from those. You can also go to Mayhem Road Capacity for extra conditioning, and then Mayhem Bodybuilding if you really need to work on gaining even more muscle. Just make sure you're careful with what you pick from those so you're not hitting the same movement patterns or same movements over and over again. Anything else you can think of for more volume?
Don't.
How do we get more volume?
Don't.
Yeah.
Probably don't.
Yeah.
They're going to ask, or someone will. Just don't do the same things. Do different things that you're already working on with these pieces here. We talked a ton about off season. The other two more pieces. What about weekend warriors who want to do like competitions in the summer or may compete again before the next Open? What would you tell those guys?
Throw down, have some fun. I think train through it. Maybe, that's so hard to not say individualized, right? Like where you're thinking like if it's a competition that you really want to do well in, that's where you might want to start thinking about, how do I maybe change, like maybe I go off track from this a little bit for a few weeks and do a little bit more classic CrossFit when it comes to the rotation of those Metcons, right? Maybe you are pulling a little bit more classic CrossFit pieces heading into the competition. I would say if you're somebody who's like, man, I just want to do it for fun, then just train through it. Like, and all that looks like, what does train through it mean? If it's a Saturday competition, like Friday, like literally train normally all week. Friday, do an active recovery day. Saturday, go throw down with your friends. Sunday, rest. Get right back on track on Monday.
Totally agree.
Like, keep it simple.
Do it. Use your fitness. It's so fun.
100%.
It's so fun. It's the exact same thing. No pressure too. Yeah. Shout out beach ball. Be a great competition to do. God, it's in October, September, I think.
Jake did Elite Wadapalooza this year.
I did.
Know?
That's right. Use your fitness.
Yeah.
That'll give me a heart attack. Oh gosh. Woo, I'm not using fitness anymore. Last one on that. I thought about how do I build a community remotely while doing Hulk out? That's anything really, Mayhem athlete. Like be an app, engage with others. We'll have a ton of media going out on as well. But really, if you fist bump, comment on some, find people on the leaderboard that you're similar times with in the Metcons, maybe similar lifts with. Reach out to those people. We got our Facebook group. Tons of other ways out there as well. Like that's really fun how they do that. And I know tons of people do that. Like they got their buddy that they're not competing with, but going head to head with every day. It's like, oh man, that workout was terrible. What'd you get on it? What'd you think about it? How'd you approach it? That's how you make this fun. You get your little groups like that and just talk about the workouts that come out each week and
get a training partner.
Yeah.
Find a training partner for this off season. If you don't have a training partner, you don't have friends, and you don't have community outside the gym, go to church. If you don't like church, go. Where else do you go?
Coffee shop.
Go to the club. I'm just kidding.
Club.
That's not a good place for
Walker Music
friends.
Festival.
Yeah, yeah.
In church.
Coffee shop. Go to the coffee shop. Yeah.
Gym. Yeah. Yeah, that's the big overview, whole cult cycle. I know we got in the weeds some there, but we really wanted to try out, like, give you as much detail as we can going into this so you guys can be excited for it. If you got more questions, you can always, comment on this video. Email us at programs@mayhemnation.com. Also, if you're a Mayhem athlete, in the comments every single day in the app, you can ask questions there. That was a lot already. Where were we at on time, Gunkler? Oh, we're pretty long. How long do I usually go? An hour?
I don't even know.
No idea.
We just
Covered a lot though.
Yeah, we fill it out.
That was good.
I think that was really good. I don't know. You could talk about maybe one client, like let's say their strength, like they need to work on strength. That's the thing. They need to work on getting better in the squat, pull, and press, just foundational strength. How would you change up what we're doing there from what it is? And how would you individualize, I guess, a little bit more if that was their big focus? Like, they work on everything, quote unquote, but the biggest thing is like, we just got to get them stronger.
Yeah, I'm going to give you an avatar. 2 clean and jerks at the 165.
Can I get a whiteboard?
Quarterfinal athlete.
Oh, jeez.
Squeezed in with like barely got in. Got like PR'd clean and jerk twice at the 165 bar. Gymnastics workout, did not get to the muscle ups.
Guy or girl?
Because
girl, right?
We'll say girl. Yeah, girl. I only coach girls.
Always use girls. No one else.
The opposite of what I typically
one
do.
male athlete, 26 girls.
Jeez.
No, that's definitely not true. But, and then what was the other workouts? Oh, the step ups were super heavy. The 35-pound dumbbells slowed them down. The snatch, as it progressed through the workout, was like nearing towards squat snatches. What do you do with an athlete like that?
Eat more, sleep more, do Hulk out.
Do Hulk out.
Yeah, I mean, well, obviously, like, I think it's easier. Almost, I'm gonna answer your question maybe a little bit differently because you could go down a wormhole of that, which is like going. The way that we would take it a step further with Mayhem Performance Coaching would be we're gonna look at, Hulk out is we're saying, hey, we're gonna get stronger in general. And for an individual client, we're going to go, where do you need to get stronger specifically? And that's where we're going to bias your training. And then, Hulk out, we're saying, hey, we're going to do skill development. It's going to be well balanced, right? We've got, Pamela doing the gymnastics work and we've got Olympic lifting. An individual, we're going to go, what's the biggest bang for your buck? So if you didn't get to the ring muscle ups, or let's say you got to the ring muscle ups and you just like your max ring muscle up is 1 or 2. Well, if you're following Hulk out, we might do ring muscle ups once every other week, right, on average. Mm-hmm. Well, for that individual, she might be doing ring muscle ups 2 to 3 days a week, right? So that's obviously going to expedite your progress. It's really, it's more the quantity that we're going to be doing things that you need to work on. And that's just really that's the major difference. It's like we're following the same off-season structure. The individualization is in looking like where are the particular areas you need to get better at, and we're just going to do them more frequently. And we're going to be okay with not touching other things as frequently and putting them more or less in like maintenance mode, so to speak.
Yeah. So. Yeah. The thing, y'all program, I've done some individual clients, people have done way more than me. And the thing I see the most of for sure when I look at your clients is the framework is basically saying it's just a plug and play is a lot, way more individualized with what you just said. Like we had to program for the avatar and you're still going to get fitter following it for sure. But like if it's ring muscle up and you got to hit that every week, we're going to pull way back on other gymnastic pulling and pressing to focus on that. You'll work on different planes to support those things. And then
she may need a day of unilateral squatting, right? Like if the step ups just buried her, like we might say, hey, you know what? We don't need a front squat and back squat and clean. We're going to front squat one day, for example, and then we're going to do, rear foot elevated split squats on the second day. It's like, you're right. Like the general program design principles or the periodization, like how we're blocking our training out is pretty much the same. Where it really gets more, I think, beneficial is if, you give like an avatar where you're like former power lifter, very strong athlete, who needs to work on their aerobic base. Yeah. And now you're like, that flips everything upside down.
Oh yeah.
And you're like, okay, we're doing conditioning. A lot different. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we're doing conditioning year round, right? Not that we're not with everybody else, but that's the bias.
And it's priority per session too, right? Yep. Like if you look at the phase and off season that competes going into, it's starting with strength every day. But an athlete, that's that athlete. What are they doing first every day? They might still do some strength. it's not going to be completely neglected. They'll probably do some maintenance, right? But they're going to start with their conditioning, or they're going to start with their aerobic work, and that's going to be the priority every single day, year round.
And man, now you got me on a performance coaching kick, so I'm
Here
gonna
we
keep going.
go.
It goes back to coaching the whole person though too, right? Because then you have to ask yourself, like, this female that's coming to me, it's like, what has she been doing for training? And if she's been doing Mayhem Compete, which happens a lot, right? We get most people come to Mayhem Performance Coaching, been following Mayhem Compete. They just want individualization. So they come to us, I've been following Compete, but they're not getting stronger on Compete. Well, it's likely not the program that's the issue. 9 times out of 10, it's their nutrition or it's their lifestyle. And so then that's where we're really making the biggest differences with people is in cleaning those areas up. If you're in a caloric deficit and you're sleeping 5 hours a night, I don't care who you are. Like, yeah.
You're getting stronger. I'm glad you brought that up. General, man, I'm not a nutritionist, so here we go. But general rule of thumb in this cycle, if you really want to get stronger, I would say increase your caloric intake by 10%, if not more. Hitting body weight in grams of protein, you could even up it probably more than that. And then beyond that, you should be in bed at least 8, if not 9 hours a night, which means you're sleeping 1 hour less than that if you want to maximize how much you're covering. And
there's so much nuance there. Like, if you're like a newbie, like it doesn't, you can, it just, there's caveats. If you're overweight and you need to lose weight, how do you do this cycle? And then still, it's like,
he's poking all the holes. There we go.
Yeah.
Cut that out.
Cut.
If you're a healthy body weight avatar, then this would be the time.
If you were the perfect avatar,
you could eat more, put on a little more muscle.
In principle, for sure,
if you
though.
want to get strong.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You have to at least eat maintenance.
I mean, I had a male this year that was like our biggest priority. It was like, if he got strong, he's placing maybe top 20 at a semi. And it was like, all right, let's address that. What does that look like? And people come up to me all the time like, how did he get so strong in 5 months or something? They're like, what programming is he doing? I'm like, stop asking that question. He ate 7,000 calories a day and slept 14 hours a night. You go do that. Literally keep doing what you're doing, and then let me know if you get stronger. And I guarantee you will. You don't need my programming. You just need to actually do what's required.
He still lifted all the time and did your programming, but
sure,
right.
Those are foundational. Like that, if he didn't do that, he's not going from a 325 clean to a 375 clean. Yeah. He's going from a 325 clean to a 340 clean.
Yeah. We talk about a lot about periodizing training. Like, that's what everybody talks about. Your nutrition ought to be periodized with your training, and it ought to align with it.
So good.
In the words of Sean McGovern, like, life has seasons, so should your training, and so should your nutrition, right? And they ought to work in tandem with each other. That's how you get fit.
For sure.
Amen.
It's a good one to go down. Hulk out.
Cool. Yeah. We should have done curls before.
Oh, we're about to go do some curls.
Or push-ups real
fast. Push-pull after this.
I'm just going to go do the 7,000 calories. Forget that exercise portion.
Oh, man.
Dr. Pepper and Uncrustables.
Actually, I haven't been drinking any.
Pizza?
Right on.
Still clean? Not a boy.
I've had some ice cream in the last couple of weeks. I had some with Jess because we were a little depressed for a few days. We're back out of the
This
hole.
is confession.
Understandable.
Yeah.
Well, that's it, guys.
I had Taco Bell after the marathon.
You did?
First time in a decade.
What?
Yeah. It was also 10 o'clock at night.
What'd you get?
So I felt real
good.
Yeah, I felt so guilty,
good.
bro.
Did you get gluten-free taco? Or
I got 2 crunchy tacos with meat and tomato.
That's it?
But they had
of course, corn tortilla.
I ordered a Slurpee, which was huge. That was a huge step for me.
You BA.
I know, dude. I felt like a boss leaving Taco Bell.
Dude,
I thought you were going to go gluten-free pizza.
Never, ever sleep on a Taco Bell chicken quesadilla. Oh, that sauce is just different. Anyways.
Middle school me.
Thank you for attending the Mayhem Athlete podcast. Hope you enjoyed hearing about how we program, what we're thinking about, what we're trying to set up for you guys. And I think we'll probably keep doing a couple of these as we roll out cycles and just keep you guys updated on how we're thinking, what we're thinking about CrossFit. We're also following trends on how programming goes and how season changes. And programming will change and adapt to that stuff as well. And those are things we're always meeting together as coaches and putting together for you guys. So ready to get you guys strong and get prepared for 2025. That is crazy to say.
Best of the best. Hulk out May 13th. Hop on with us. If you want more of that, come see us, Mayhem Athlete app. If you want more individualized, check out Mayhem Performance Coaching. Best of the best in the business. Appreciate you, Mayhem family. We'll see you guys soon.